What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of season 3. Technically, this is season 3 for us because we've been
That's
covering,
fair, yeah.
obviously, we've been doing this for like 3 years now, kind of in and out, right?
Yeah.
But season 3, episode 1, obviously, season 3 that we've been covering, or I guess kind of watching college football and kind of talking about it, really. But, well,
Been watching it longer than that.
yeah.
Been speaking over it or
Right.
adding commentary on it. Yeah.
Right. So, anybody that's new to this channel, obviously, we talk a lot about college football. We do a lot of commentary. We have some breakdowns every once in a while. We did, like, when we started out, we did a lot of breakdowns, like, for the coming season.
Which was the plan still, but
Yeah. We just kind of, it was, obviously, we didn't have a lot of time, and then it was just...
School took over my time.
Yeah. So, obviously, now we have some free time, and in the middle of... So, today is the 4th of July. If you're out there, stay safe. Hopefully, you guys don't blow your hands up with fireworks or anything. But today,
always there's always people,
right? But this whole weekend, just leading up to the weekend, has been crazy news of college football, and
that news was this week, right?
Yeah, it was last Wednesday or Thursday, something like that.
I think it was Thursday.
So Let's get into the biggest news of college football for this season. Really, is USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Man,
this is probably the biggest news in the past decade, 2 decades of college football.
I think it's just it's big news primarily because like USC is across the country joining the Big Ten, a Midwest, obviously, a conference.
They obviously saw that the Pac-12 is dying, or it was never a good conference to begin with. Right?
Who did?
USC and UCLA. They had to have known like it was either dying or it was being pushed in the wrong direction, or that they just didn't. Maybe it was a bad conference to begin with, that they didn't want to be part of it. They just left. Well,
one of the main things that I've kept reading is just USC knew that they weren't going to be able to compete for anything in the Pac-12.
Yeah, the opponents they face aren't.
Like, obviously, they're not the caliber like SEC opponents are.
Or Big Ten opponents.
Right.
You have your Michigans, your Ohio States.
Also, the fact that they didn't get, like, they have, like, without USC in that conference, like, there is no viewership across, like, the Pac-12.
Aside from Oregon fans.
Right. And then, even then, they try to make it out. Like, I understand USC is popular and they're like a blue blood brand.
Blue blood,
but
for sure.
The fact that they've been irrelevant or, for the last 15 years is also not the Pac-12's fault, because they can push USC football all they want, but if the product is not great and it's not winning games,
that's true,
then it falls on USC too. Like, it's not
true. Like, I mean, it's USC's doing for keeping Clay Helton for as long as they did.
Yeah, that's true.
He should have been fired 2-3 years before eventually they let him go, right? So that's on them for keeping Clay Helton for that long. I mean, it was a slam dunk hire to pull Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's a slam dunk hire. I'm not gonna lie about it. Obviously, we say some things about Lincoln Riley behind the camera, but I don't know. It just means to me that I have some reservations about the move from for USC and UCLA to then join a Midwest conference like the Big Ten. It's good and bad for college football.
Yeah, the way I see it is, and like we'll get into the whole Lincoln Riley and USC thing here in a second, but for me, it's just the fact that it doesn't make sense. Like, for warm weather teams that are gonna have to come up and play in cool and cold weather, like that just doesn't seem like it'll work.
Yeah.
Especially at least for USC and UCLA.
Yeah.
But like, the other thing that I kind of think about is this doesn't just affect football. It affects all the other sports.
All the other sports.
So, like, do all the other sports in UCLA and USC join the Big Ten too?
I don't know. I don't think so. I would say no. I would say the other sports stay in the Pac-12.
Well, that's okay. So that's a really good.
Their football will travel because their football makes the most amount of revenue in any given college.
Yeah.
Football. I mean, aside if you're like Kansas, probably basketball.
Yeah.
But for most colleges, football makes the most amount of revenue.
Right.
So it's not like I'm gonna send, or if I'm an AD at USC, am I gonna send my women's volleyball team across the country to go play Purdue in West Lafayette, Indiana?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of money in terms of flying a team out. Not saying that USC volleyball isn't good, because if you want to play volleyball, you go to the West Coast.
Right.
They play good volleyball in the West Coast. They also play good volleyball here in the Big Ten. Purdue was ranked last year. Nebraska's always good. You got teams that are always good also, but I don't see them doing that for every sport, like field hockey, or they don't have a hockey team, but baseball or soccer. You know what I mean? I don't think they.
Yeah, I don't know how it works in with all the other sports, because if
I think they let them sit in the Pac-12. If you take an example for Notre Dame, right? They have their hockey team in Big Ten because no other conference really has hockey.
Right.
So they have to do that.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame being independent alone for their football team, and the rest of their sports are in the ACC or full affiliates.
Yeah.
So I feel like US teams like USC and UCLA can do that.
I don't think that's just how it's going to work. I have a feeling that it might be the entirety of all sports, which would be really bad, because there's going to be some swimmers. They're going to have to travel all the way.
Or the swimming team. Yeah.
All the way to, what is it, Piscataway?
Piscataway, New Jersey.
I don't even know how to spell it.
Not even.
But, man, that's just a weird, I don't know obviously how it works with other sports, but in general, in football, let's go on to the next point here. It's what this means for USC and UCLA. What do you think? What did it mean to you?
Like I said, it's a good and a bad move for college football. I don't like the change in the landscape for college football in its entirety. I understand the move for USC and UCLA, because if they see that the Pac-12 is not giving them what they need to be a successful program in terms of giving them a spotlight / also giving them good opponents to boost in their schedule, then I understand that move. But this is more of a money move, I feel like, to me, and I don't like that move for college football, because now traditions are falling apart. You said it earlier. USC is a blue blood. UCLA can be argued to be a blue blood back in the day, maybe, but USC is a blue blood program where they just threw all the tradition away.
Yeah,
they just threw it away. Tradition out the door. They didn't care about it. All they cared about was the money move to go to the Big Ten, because now what are they talking about? $80 million, $100 million figures. Once they join the Big Ten, this is the money move.
Yeah.
So I think it's, like I said, good and bad for college football. It's good in terms of we're going to see some big hidden games. We're going to see USC and Ohio State, USC and Michigan every year, right?
Or at least hopefully, or at least something like it,
something
right?
like that every other year. Even include Michigan State, they're on the rise. Include Penn State, they're always good. They've had their off years recently. So it's just one of those things where I think that's the good look. The bad look is that you got two teams in LA come play, like you mentioned, in the Midwest. So you're gonna come over here and get whooped in the cold in November.
Yeah.
So if that's what you want to do, come over and lose all your away November games over here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
We'll gladly give you this whooping.
Well, for me, what I thought it meant is essentially USC needed the Big Ten, because without the Big Ten, there is no competing for national titles. If they want to compete for national titles, they need a bigger conference. The Pac-12 wasn't going to get it done. The Pac-12 hasn't been to the playoff besides Oregon and Washington, early on.
Yeah.
And then both of those teams, or at least Washington got blown out, but Oregon made it to the national title, where they ended up losing to was it Florida State?
Is it recent?
I thought that's what it was when Oregon went into the playoff. In 14 or 15?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry. I was going way back to 2011 or something like that. It was Florida State. It was Oregon and Auburn. I remember that.
Was it that one?
Way back when. But that was BCS era.
Was that? No.
That was BCS era. Auburn.
Well, I know they played in the BCS era, but I'm talking about, didn't Oregon make the playoff?
Oregon and Florida State. You had it right. That was the first ever playoff.
Right. But didn't they go to the national title that year?
Yeah, it was Ohio State. And they got smashed.
So it was Ohio. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying.
That wasn't
the last time that the Pac-12 has had teams going to the playoff is Oregon and Washington.
Yeah.
And Oregon.
Well, I guess Washington was in 2017.
Something like that, where they got blown out by Alabama. It was 3-30 or something.
Well, they kept it. They kept it. Was that the closest point margin win for Alabama ever in the playoff? I think Washington held their own. Washington had a great defense that year too. Phenomenal defense that year.
I don't.
As well as everybody, they were surprising everybody. They scored first in the game. I remember that, and I was like, "Wow, this is gonna be a barn burner." It was not a barn burner.
Was it this one? I think it is this one. Yeah, 7-24. No, it wasn't even close, bro.
win margin Alabama has been kept to?
I mean, I guess it was close. I mean, it was 17
points. 17 points.
I don't know. Like, they didn't score the last three, like any of the three quarters.
I guess not, because then Alabama would beat Clemson like by 4-3 at one national championship year. I can't remember now. There's so many games.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
memories fall foggy.
But for USC, this meant that they want to compete for national titles. At least,
it's good on USC to make that move. To I guess like I was saying earlier, for a blue blood team to then look at their tradition and be like, we have to move away from this. This is now a new era. I mean, that's saying something like it's showing a lot of pride, really.
Yeah.
So even teams like Notre Dame, who are right now considering joining the Big Ten or any conference, you're swallowing a lot of pride, also throwing away a lot of tradition.
At least some tradition, right? Not all of it, but
not all of it.
But obviously, USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten kind of keeps that rivalry right there with UCLA, and then they also USC did come out and say that obviously they will continue to play Notre Dame.
Yes.
But
then that how that look will. It's interesting to me because normally USC and Notre Dame will play each other in the middle or at the end of the season.
Right.
But if they're going to join the Big Ten, how is the Big Ten going to navigate?
I think it'd be the same way, just the same way that the Pac-12 did it with them.
Fair.
So I think it's still possible the way to do it. Except now, USC can't avoid going to the Midwest in November.
No.
Prior they could because usually. They would play Notre Dame in the middle of October, and then they'd have warm. And then they'd have Notre Dame come in actually opposite years. Come to LA, right?
And it's warm.
And I think now this is obviously great. I think it's good for USC. They need the money. If they are, I guess they don't need the money. They want the money.
Individually, it's good for the two teams.
Yeah.
For the like I was mentioning, for the whole landscape of college football. It's good and bad.
Yeah.
I don't like the move. Obviously, like everybody else on Twitter is saying, it makes no sense.
Right.
Throw away the geographical barrier rules. Throw that all away.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff prior, like a lot of the conferences were made because of they were made regionally because they just couldn't travel that far. But now,
originally,
because of travel is a little bit more accessible and I guess I wouldn't say cheaper, but I guess teams will pay whatever they want to travel, right?
I mean, the $80 to $100 million will also allow them to pay for travel.
But that's also including to traveling for other teams too. Like
if
all the other teams are joining the Big Ten as well.
That's
so
true.
I think it's much easier now to travel, obviously, and so regional conferences they still make sense just because they're regional.
Yeah.
But they don't attract a lot of attention. You know what I mean? Like the SEC is very regional, so it gets the whole South.
Yes.
And if they're winning, a lot of national titles, it's just the South that's essentially celebrating a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
And then the Big Ten has competed for some championships. Obviously, they had Ohio State win it in 2014.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool.
Ohio State recently was in a national championship.
Yeah, it got blown out though to Alabama, but still,
Yep.
I feel like this is obviously we'll get to what it means for the entirety of college football, but. What this means for the Big Ten for me is the Big Ten is obviously trying to compete with the SEC.
Yes,
that's honestly what it's trying to do.
And I feel like the Big Ten has done a good amount. Has done a good job at competing with the SEC for the most part. Obviously, they're not producing national championship. Not national championships every year like they do, like the SEC does with Alabama or Georgia, right?
Right.
But the Big Ten has their teams, right? They have Ohio State, they have Michigan whenever they want to. Play well and actually get over the hump with Ohio State. They'll have Penn State, they'll have Michigan State. So those teams are still growing. I think I don't see it great for USC in terms of what your point was there. Will these teams struggle or succeed in the Big Ten? The first few years are going to be rough.
Oh no. So before I go on to that part, I do want to say that.
We're still going to go back.
No, I still want to. I have one more point on the other bullet point that I had. But
I moved too soon. My bad. I didn't realize that.
But I think this also helps. So the Big Ten, it helps all the other teams in the Big Ten to be able to recruit on the West Coast because they're going to have to travel there, and obviously they'll be able to set up at least some kind of recruiting base there.
Yeah.
And I think that's great for the conference in general as a whole. However, I don't see it benefiting USC as much as people think it is, just because they're gonna have to go play in obviously cold weather places, and I understand they'll be able to take like some players that obviously don't want to be in the cold every year.
Yeah, that's true.
So they'll be able to grab them, but that means they have to go back and play in that weather. Like it's not like they can avoid it. There is no avoiding that.
I hope there's not avoiding. I hope they don't give them on all home games in November.
Oh no,
I highly doubt they do. But
yeah.
That would upset me.
Also, some of the biggest colleges, like at least stadiums, are in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Like they're much bigger than they are in the Pac-12.
That's true.
So like this whole, like I don't think it's going to be as easy. Obviously, moving on to the next point is, will these teams struggle or succeed? And I think they will struggle very
mightily.
Yes.
They'll struggle hard. They'll struggle very bad for the first few years.
Right.
They'll have their growing pains for sure. And something we didn't touch on yet, or which I will now, is that the time difference. USC and UCLA being 3 hours behind in terms of most Midwest teams, they're going to subject their players to coming over here and their internal clocks being 3 hours behind. So if they have a noon game, obviously they'll be here originally. They'll be here a day or two before the game itself, but their internal clocks, you can't adjust for every week. You know what I mean? You have to have repetition and waking up at the same time, and then you get that all figured out. But I think it's going to be the struggle for their players and their internal clocks. It's going to be what did we say? 9 a.m. to them.
Yeah, that's all. If they have noon games, right?
Noon here.
Yeah, and obviously the Big Ten does play some noon games, so it's not like they're going to get primetime games, 3 o'clock games. They're going to get a noon o'clock game every once in a while.
Yeah.
So it's not.
I think most if it's Ohio State, they get a primetime spot.
Right.
If it's Michigan State, maybe a primetime spot, maybe a 4 p.m. kickoff or whatever, and that's here in the Midwest.
I mean, here I have this. So right now I have this list pulled up. The 25 largest college football stadiums in the United States, and I'm telling you right now, the top 3 stadiums,
Big Ten,
are Big Ten. They're going to struggle at Michigan. They're going to struggle at Penn State, at Ohio State. And then there is no Pac-12 team in the top 10 besides UCLA. And that's just because they play in the Rose Bowl.
That's true.
So
and that's coming in at number 10.
Yeah.
So
the rest is filled with either SEC or future SEC teams like Texas, and then Big Ten teams.
Yep.
And
then Notre Dame at 16. Notre Dame comes in at 16.
Like it's not gonna get any easier. And let's see who's obviously outside of UCLA because of the Rose Bowl. Yeah. Who has the highest or the biggest stadium in the Pac-12? It's USC at 20, and they have what is
77,500.
Yeah. So it's not
they're almost. Yeah,
and they don't even fill up their stadium.
Yeah, it's almost 25,000, and they taper off some of the seating too with the.
So does the Rose Bowl do for the UCLA as well. So, I mean, like it's not going to get any easier just because they go to the.
That's almost
to the Big Ten.
Wow, almost 25,000 less fans in a given USC stadium if it was full.
So they're going to go play against some fan bases that are a little more rowdy. Like they care more about their football than USC fans.
I would argue that the Big Ten fans they're more rowdy, they're more driven towards football than Pac-12 fans are.
Yeah, I mean I think obviously privately when we speak it's always like here in the Midwest there's nothing to do. Like obviously especially like in Iowa it's nothing but cold. Like and
it's cold, it's flat, there's corn sometimes.
Yeah. So like in the winter and in the fall there's nothing to do. So what do? Watch football. And so you got these fan bases that are like obviously they love and they're very loyal to their teams, right?
Yeah.
And I think USC is going to have a really not a culture shock, but they're going to see differences in how the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten at least fan bases are. Because these fans care more about football than the Pac-12 does.
Yeah, I think they do. I would die
certain
on that hill.
fan bases, obviously. Oregon fan base is pretty nice.
They get rowdy.
Utah fan base is really nice. I like their fan base.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later, but obviously Utah is still one of my favorite teams in the Pac-12 or whatever it could turn into.
Which is almost a slap in the face that Utah wouldn't be offered to come join some conference, another conference.
Right.
With I think the Pac-12 is dissolving. I think it's going to dissolve. Or we've read on several different articles they might merge with the Big 12, and Utah is a premier program, and it's been. I think Kyle Whittingham has done a great job of. One, he's been there. It's just based off longevity.
Yeah,
he's been a very good coach.
Well, obviously, just the consistency, and also just They're a team that nobody expects them every year, but they play tough. They're extremely physical up front in the trenches.
Good.
They run the ball really well.
Always good.
They have a smart quarterback with Cameron Rising. They're a nice team. They're a very nice team. And what's funny is USC has not been good the last 10 years. Last year, obviously, they finished 4-8.
Yeah.
And instead of giving the invitation to, obviously, Utah, they went after USC. And for that, they just went after the market, the LA market.
Yeah. So then the question, because I know you asked me this earlier, maybe yesterday, you were saying that is the Big Ten just pursuing markets?
Yeah.
Are they just pursuing just regional areas that they can kind of implant Big Ten
affiliation,
propaganda, so they can get people enticed to watch more Big Ten football? So I don't know. I mean, being LA, it's a massive market. It's a big market there. Of course, USC, UCLA, being a package deal makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense. But I mean, UCLA hasn't been great.
I mean, they've been
very recently. They haven't been. I would even argue they haven't even been good in the past 10
I
years.
like their trajectory more than I do USC's, just because USC right now is just getting a lot of transfer players. So they're just a hodgepodge of just players. And so we don't know if these guys will mesh and play well together, or they'll just play whatever style that they play as.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that's one of the issues that I see with this USC team is defensively. How are they going to mesh and gel defensively? Because because obviously Alex Grinch has a certain style of defense, and if these players don't fit the certain style of defense that he plays or runs, it might not work out very well.
To me, being that we know that Alex Grinch was with Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma, we know how bad Oklahoma defenses have been.
You know what's crazier? He came from the Big Ten, so he's going to go back to the Big Ten. And in the Big Ten, he got tore up.
He's going to get tore up again. This is like we said. This is a West Coast team who is known for high-powered offenses. Quarterback frenzies going crazy, big numbers. Right? You're going to come over to these Big Ten teams who want to beat you. They're going to beat you. They're not. They don't want to. They're going to. They're going to beat you in the trenches. They're gonna run the ball down your throat every play. They're gonna lose.
Yeah. These teams are very physical. It's not like a cakewalk. I understand people want to say, "Oh, it's just Rutgers. It's just Purdue." Iowa lost to Purdue last year.
Lose to Purdue.
Iowa was the number two team at the time when they lost to Purdue.
Yep.
Michigan State went to Purdue.
Lost to Purdue.
It's not that easy. You're acting like people act like, oh, take away Ohio State and this conference is winnable. No. It's not. They're still Penn State.
Yep.
Michigan State's obviously on the up and up. I like their trajectory as well. They're recruiting really well.
100%.
Michigan needs to, improve on recruiting, but typically they're tough out. I mean, they're physical.
Yeah. Michigan's getting tore up on the recruiting trail.
They are. It's pretty bad. But outside of that though, all teams are tough. Especially you're not gonna run against Wisconsin.
No, you're not.
That front seven is usually tough.
Always tough.
Trenches, offensive line, they're gonna work.
To run all over you.
It's not gonna get any easier just because they're gonna go play in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And I guess they have a better offense than most teams. That's cool. They don't care.
That's cool, yeah. Because if you're playing a team that likes to run the ball, you're not gonna have the ball.
Yeah.
Time will be run out. Wisconsin will just keep on running it. Your high-powered offense will never see the field.
Right. And it's also Ohio State has fallen to cross-division opponents. Obviously going to Iowa that one year. In 2018 or something?
Something like that. Or going to Purdue.
It's not easy.
It ain't easy.
So I'm looking forward to it because these teams, obviously USC, I think the path to get to the national title is extremely tougher now. It's not.
Yes, I think it's. I'm not gonna say it's unreachable because any team can reach it.
Yeah.
But it has gotten 10 times worse.
Yeah, because now you have teams like a Northwestern, a Purdue, a Nebraska, or a team like Minnesota. If you let them hang around, they can win.
Yeah, you're gonna be in a fist fight.
These teams can actually win some games. It's not just the Pac-12 is different. In the Pac-12 you had Arizona who went 1-11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How often do you have that? Obviously, Purdue did that a few years a while ago.
And you got your Rutgers sometimes, is struggling. Maryland struggles sometimes. IU struggled last year.
Right.
So
I'm just I don't see it being easy. Now I understand they're gonna be able to win. They're gonna win some of these games. Obviously, some teams are gonna be not as good. Indiana has taken a huge step back.
Yeah.
like which is surprising. Obviously, Maryland and Rutgers are kind of hit or miss every other year or every other game.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they're gonna win games. Like I'm not saying they're not gonna win games because obviously they'll
will. They'll win their games. They'll lose the games they're supposed to lose. I still don't see USC or we're mainly speaking about USC here. I don't see USC
because we don't think UCLA has a chance. Like UCLA is nice.
UCLA is nice,
but I think they're more of a grab for the basketball.
Yeah.
Not for the football team.
Yeah, UCLA basketball is good. USC basketball is also not bad too.
They've been pretty consistent the last couple of years or so.
Coming up for sure.
But I think UCLA was more of a grab for basketball, and that would make sense because obviously Purdue basketball, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, obviously adding UCLA.
Illinois was highly ranked.
Iowa too had a couple players or a player last year.
It's the Midwest. The Midwest is always going to be good with basketball.
Yeah, so I think UCLA, while they are nice, they will be a nice team in the Big Ten, at least football.
Yeah.
But they won't. I don't see them competing.
The UCLA. I mean, like we said, it's a package deal. It's the whole LA market.
Right.
It makes sense to bring them both on.
Yeah.
USC playing in the Big Ten, they're gonna lose to the teams you're supposed to lose to.
Yeah.
USC in the first few years, and they may get better. They may end up recruiting a lot better than what they're doing now. Instead of just kind of poaching players from the transfer portal,
right?
But they're gonna lose to Ohio State. I still see them losing to Penn State. They're gonna lose to Michigan. They're gonna lose to Michigan State, or however often they play them. I don't see them winning those games immediately,
right?
And I don't see them beating a Wisconsin team if it's at Wisconsin in November,
right?
If they come when they do come up to the Midwest in November, I highly think they're losing every time they come in November in the cold up here. Every single time.
Well, I guess it depends. Like, say they have to, like, if it's a noon game and East, like, say they have to go to Rutgers East noon in November.
Yeah, they're losing. It's cold. It's probably snowing, or it's probably raining cold. Terrible, awful weather. I
don't know. We'll see how it goes, but. For me, I just don't see UCLA. Obviously, they'll be a nice like in the middle team there.
I think they will be.
USC will be like within the top 4 of the conference, but they'll probably be either 3rd or 4th every year.
I think that's pretty generous.
Just because
I think they'll be either 3rd or 4th in whatever respective division or whatever they want to do that.
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean. It's hard to say. I mean, these teams, like the Big Ten teams, are much more established in the trenches.
Yes.
Right now, USC D-line, they're not going to compete with any of the Big Ten.
I don't think so.
At least
I also don't have I don't put a lot of stock in USC's O-line.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I would. It's hard to project this stuff because this is 2-3 years out. Because
yes, true.
They won't be able to play in the Big Ten until 2024. So say 2024 comes and then they look nicer. I think they could compete for the Big Ten.
Compete a little more, yeah.
But
then my tone will change.
Right.
If they were to play now.
No.
No, they're getting smoked.
No. And I kind of hope that they end up like doing well enough that they go and play like a Big Ten team. Like say they play like Michigan State or something. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be.
Like in a bowl game.
Yeah.
I think Michigan State could easily win that game.
Yes.
I think it'll be their defense will struggle with their offense with USC offense because I believe all defenses will struggle with this offense.
With USC offense for sure. It's gonna be a high-powered offense. Yeah.
But I still think that teams that like to run the ball a little bit more physical, they don't shy away from the contact. Mm-hmm. Those teams are bad matchups for USC.
That's what, especially like, and we'll go back to the USC's defense. I'm not convinced with Grinch as DC. You know, I mean, like I said, we saw OU's defense. It wasn't great, and he's bringing the same. I'm assuming he's bringing almost the same model, some tweaks here and there. Not convinced. Yeah.
Also, that kind of is interesting. The fact that obviously going back to the Big Ten for Alex Grinch. That's if he lasts that long. I don't think he'll be there that long. I think he probably gets fired after a year or two. I think they're not going to be very good defensively. If you look at the recruiting right now for their defense, it's not very good. They don't. They have like obviously a couple safeties and I think it's like 2 safeties and a corner, maybe a linebacker.
Yeah.
But no D lineman. Mm-hmm. And right now, like we'll take a look at their recruiting class here in a second, but. If you had to put a number on the years, how long or how many years until like USC realistically competes in the Big Ten?
How many years in the Big Ten?
So once they join the 2024 mark.
Yeah. So how many years? I'd say 5.
5 years.
I think 5 years.
Within 5 years or at the 5-year mark?
No, I'd say at 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Maybe at 4. I'd say at 4. Let me go at 4. So it'd be a couple of years in the Big Ten. They're gonna realize this is different football up here.
Right. Well, I like the way. So right now, the way I see it is in 2 years. Let's see. So C.J. Stroud would be gone from Ohio State.
Yes.
Dylan Raiola would probably still be there though.
Yes.
The number 1 quarterback for 2024, right?
Okay.
Yeah, he would be there. And then they have I think a couple backups right now that are really highly touted. I think one of them was the Brown kid or something.
I can't remember. But I know you're talking about. I just don't know. I just don't remember his name.
Right. So I think they're going to be fine at quarterback. Receivers, if Brian Hartline's there, they're going to be
Ohio
great.
State. And Ohio State, I think, is still going to have the better receiving core.
I think it'll come down to that. I think it'll just come down to always Ohio State where they're at. And if Ohio State's like on a different level every year, they're not like USC is not going to stop them. Like it doesn't matter if they have improved their receiving, or I guess not their receiving, their like DB play and their secondary.
Yep.
But Ryan Day is one of the most I think underrated offensive minds in college football. Mm-hmm. And I only say that because I think more credit is given to Lincoln Riley than it is to Ryan Day. Like Ryan Day has won a semi game.
It's true.
Lincoln Riley hasn't.
He has not.
So I'm just like, I lean towards more Ohio State just because I've seen the success there, and USC, like they haven't had the success in like 10 years. So, but moving on, does this eventually lead to like a mega conference, like 2 mega conferences?
Yeah, it's. I mean, all the signs are there. I mean, the Big Ten going after USC and UCLA, that gives them 16 teams.
Yeah,
16 teams now. I mean, they're trying to. I think they're making the move to Notre Dame. We'll get to that later. That would make 17 teams, and all the tweets are saying that Oregon and Washington are told to sit and wait till we get Notre Dame's response by the Big Ten. Right. So that's already, if you add Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten, that would be 18 teams. Notre Dame would be 19. The 19th team, and then they can keep adding on to.
I think that 20th team would probably be like a Stanford, just because of the rivalry with Notre Dame.
If they were enticed, if they needed something else to entice Notre Dame even more.
Yeah.
I do like that, like we mentioned already, the move to pick up Utah because they're a good program. They're a very good team. So I mean, this is 2 mega conferences because if the SEC is already getting Oklahoma and Texas, if the SEC still witnesses Big Ten making more moves to get more teams, they're going to have to follow suit and go after Clemson, go after Florida State, go after Miami. So they're going to, of course, this is easily going to be a 2 mega conferences. Although I don't know what this means for. So if the Pac-12 or the Big 12 were to merge, what would happen with that conference? What would happen with the remains of the ACC? What would happen with the rest of the college football world in terms of the Group of 5? So if this is a mega conference, do they just separate from D1 AA to something else?
Like their own league? Yeah, I don't. That seems like a possibility, just because that's where it feels like it's going. Yeah. But I also don't think like 2 mega conferences feels like you know how like 11-1 in a conference seems like dang, that's a really good year, even if you lost 1 game in that conference. Yeah. Like the new standard, or I guess the normal records now would be like a 9-3. Like you have 3 losses to like within conference play. That feels not as important as a team that like say that went 11-1 in conference, right? Which, and I also don't think they will play like a lot of conference games. I think they would cap it at 8 conference games. Obviously, give 3 non-conference.
So then it would be like they would even have their own little small playoff for their conference before the actual college football playoff, which is weird.
Yeah,
because there's so many teams. You're not going to be able to run through all the teams.
No.
So then you would have to do a little playoff system within the conference to crown a conference champion.
Right, but I think right now the ACC is definitely looking at Notre Dame, and they need Notre Dame like
to keep them alive. They're begging them, probably offering them, whatever they can.
I think if Notre Dame joins the ACC, I think the ACC stays where it's at, but they look probably to adding teams as well too.
Yeah,
I think because having Notre Dame join, you're obviously at odd numbers, so you're going to need another team to join Notre Dame with them. And what other team would be there?
Who would you go get?
You could go ask Cincinnati.
They're already going to the Big 12.
Yeah, they haven't joined yet. Go ask them.
Go ask them. You could. Yeah, you could go as UCF, extend the UCF. Like, hey, we'll stay in you're staying in your region. If you
West Virginia, take them from the Big 12.
take them from the Big 12.
Let's see who else is in there. Because the ACC can survive with Notre Dame. That's Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami, Clemson.
Notre Dame moves by their tradition. So if they want to, if the ACC really want Notre Dame, the ACC would have to do whatever Notre Dame asks them to do.
Well,
then the Big Ten right now is trying to entice Notre Dame by already pulling in their biggest rivals.
Or they could stay with what the deal is right now. So they have the deal where it's like the quasi, deal or quasi, whatever the fuck, right? To get into the ACC or
I understand what you're saying. Go on.
But I don't know. I'm thinking of a different. I was thinking of what I was leading to, but they can do that with the Big Ten if the Big Ten wants to do that too.
Yeah. So I think there's more merit, even what Brady Quinn said when we read it at his quote. There's more. It's more enticing to go join the Big Ten because one, you're already in the Midwest. You don't have to you don't have to spend that much money on travel.
Yeah.
And all your biggest rivals about to join. One of your biggest rivals outside of Michigan is about to join the conference. So USC's coming. If Notre Dame asks the Big Ten now extend over to Stanford and pull them in too, that's another rival for Notre Dame.
Well, I'm not talking about more so like them joining.
Well, what I'm saying is that like if they have all their rivals, then they can have those 5.
It wouldn't be 5. It would probably go up to 6 or 7.
Yeah. So now there's more teams, but they're all even still already affiliated with the Big Ten.
Right.
So then they can keep playing their out of conference or the teams, their coast to coast games that Notre Dame likes to play all the time.
Right, like when they play Florida State or North Carolina,
or they play Navy in a different NFL stadium every year.
Right. Yeah, I think the Big 12 will probably take in the Pac-12. I think that's what will probably kind of happen. Like the Big 12, Pac-12 kind of combined.
Yeah.
And then I think the ACC has I think they have some power right now. Like I know people want to say like the SEC is going to take, Clemson and Florida State or Clemson and Miami or whatever they're talking about, right? But I think Notre Dame has a lot of, they can play a lot of cards right now that can contain or keep a lot of the conferences the same.
Well, I'm sure once the news broke out that the Big Ten is awaiting Notre Dame's response, I'm sure the ACC immediately started contacting Notre Dame.
Yeah, I also think Notre Dame has been talking to everybody. I don't think they're just talking to the Big Ten or ACC themselves.
I think Notre Dame is such a unique spot because they can go join the SEC if they wanted to as well. And I'm sure the SEC would still want them. There's no conference that does not want Notre Dame.
Yeah, which is for a team that's always been told like they're irrelevant or they're just not they're not drawing. Yeah. They grab a lot of they're very. Of
course, it's the viewership, like you said. I think you even told me off camera. You told me that the most watched games in the past season or the past couple.
In 2020.
2020. All had they include Notre Dame.
Yeah, 1 and 2 were Notre Dame because that's the year that they joined the ACC. And guess what? The number 1 game I think was the ACC championship game, and the second game was the Clemson Notre Dame in NBC, like at home.
At South Bend.
Yeah, in South Bend. So Notre Dame going to any conference will get a number.
It's gonna boost always because Notre Dame is a national. It's a worldwide brand.
Right. And then when people say well, Notre Dame right now doesn't get the viewership on NBC, well. Because it's only Notre Dame fans watching them on NBC. It's not like you have Big Ten fans watching or going into NBC and just watching Notre Dame football. No, unless they're fans of Notre Dame, they're not watching Notre Dame.
Of course, yeah.
So when they say Ohio State's a bigger draw or they get more viewership, they get put on Fox, ABC, ESPN every Saturday. Of course they would.
And I don't like the argument Notre Dame's irrelevant. They've won 53 games in the past 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's
not only that, they've averaged 10 games a season.
Yeah. So it's one of those.
USC hasn't done that.
Yeah. So I think the narrative of Notre Dame's irrelevant or that Notre Dame it doesn't draw eyes. Now the whole college football world is hinging on Notre Dame's decision. So it's that narrative of irrelevancy. It's non-existent. Notre Dame has the potential of changing the whole landscape.
Yeah. And obviously, 2025, the playoff expires. So if there was 2 mega conferences, the playoff would probably expand.
It would need to. For sure.
Because there would be like runner-ups in the conferences that'd be like 12-2 or something.
Or just be the runner-up in the conference championship game. Yeah, they would get in regardless. So that's like a nice little safety. But at the same time, that would also that might lead to like people not wanting to play hard because they still have a guarantee.
Or you can incentivize the championship game. The winner gets a bye.
Or
a first round
bye. Host or something.
Something like that.
Or a first round bye.
Something like that. I mean, whatever you can to incentivize them actually competing for the number one spot or whatever, right? But I think if the playoff expands, I think we talked about this, and you can anybody can look this up themselves. But back when they decided or they were voting to expand the playoff, the the ACC and the Pac-12 declined, or they didn't. They voted against it.
Yes.
That's the Pac-12's own fault because that's essentially what's happening now. USC and UCLA are leaving to go to the Big Ten. It's because they just decided to not open it up anymore.
So that means to tell me that probably USC probably said we want to expand, and the majority of the other teams in the Pac-12 were like, we don't want to expand. So the majority vote was we're not expanding for the Pac-12 itself.
Right.
And then other conferences said the same thing. So they're like, all right, we're not going to expand. So I have to imagine there was probably ADs and other commissioners saying, like, yeah, we want to expand. But they lost their vote because the majority said no.
Do you think Lincoln Riley knew about it?
Do I think Lincoln Riley knew about the USC's
USC going to
USC's intent to go to the Big Ten? I'd say yes. I would say yes.
Okay.
I think he probably. I don't want to say he knew all the details. I would say he knew about the intention that USC wants to move to a different conference.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't the Big Ten. Maybe it could have been the SEC.
So this is what I think. If Lincoln Riley knew about it, that means USC and Lincoln Riley were in talks to obviously have him as a head coach way before he says they did then.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Because he knew that they were going to the SEC and decided not to go there.
Yeah.
But he decided to go to USC. But if he chose to go to USC, he understood
that they want to go to the Big Ten,
right?
Or leave their current conference.
Right. So unless he didn't know, then then the AD or obviously the people that are making the moves to go to the Big Ten, they didn't tell him, and they were just like, "Hey, tough luck."
Maybe what if they didn't want to tell him? So say they didn't want to tell him to scare him away from the job.
Okay.
Maybe they wanted him that bad. They're like, we're not gonna tell him we're gonna move until he accepts the job, and then he got stuck with the contract. You know what I mean? They could have done that, which would have been slimy.
But I mean, that fits both of them. They're both slimes.
That does fit both of them. They're both pretty slimy. So I don't know. I have to imagine. They have to imagine. You got to tell them that their intent was to move out of the Pac-12.
That's an interesting dynamic. I don't know because if he comes out and says like, yeah, he knew, then that means he was in talks with USC
longer
than people. Then when he said, oh yeah, I talked to them, it happened overnight. Like, yeah, okay, bro. Yeah, I bet it did.
But we already knew it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, no, it didn't. But moving on now to the biggest part of this, the big fish that's out there, Notre Dame. Like this whole deal is all hinging on Notre Dame, or at least this mega conference thing.
Yeah.
Because if Notre Dame decides we can wait it out, because they can renegotiate their NBC deal in 2025.
Yes.
And there's no other team in the entire country that has their own network.
Or they can renegotiate with NBC, or if some other TV program wants to offer them more than what NBC wants to, they can go with that program.
Right. And I also think right now, Notre Dame has a lot of leverage, primarily because just the way they're recruiting.
I think Notre Dame has all the power.
They're recruiting really well right now.
Yeah.
They've been consistently in the top 5, top 6 teams in the entire country every year. Yep. They are a big national brand, and just because they don't get the viewership or a big number on NBC, they get big numbers when they're on ESPN, ABC, Fox. Like when they went to Georgia, big number. Yeah. When they had Georgia come, big number. This Saturday, or not this Saturday, this fall when they go to Ohio State, it's gonna be a big number. I'm telling you, it's gonna be huge.
That's the biggest matchup of week 1.
Yeah. Notre Dame brings in a lot of eyes, and it's all because people hate Notre Dame and people love Notre Dame. There is no in between.
Yeah, people either hate him or love him, but you want to see him win or you want to see him lose.
Right.
So it's I love it.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but do you think they should stay independent or join a conference or any conference? If you could, what would you do?
I would join the Big Ten.
Join the Big
I would
Ten.
join the Big Ten. The allure. I understand that there's a lot of pride being about to swallowed / tradition thrown away, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That Notre Dame is going to have to give up their independence. I think it's time. I think it's time. I do believe it's time for Notre Dame to give that up. There's too much money left on the table for you to not go for it, especially when the narrative over the offseason when Brian Kelly left was that the facilities aren't up to par as to what they're supposed to be for a top 10 program.
Yeah.
Right. So Notre Dame being a top 10 program for the past
Right.
couple of years, if you're leaving 80 million to $100 million,
I think it could be worth up to more if Notre Dame joins.
it could be worth more. You're leaving too much
Close
money.
to 200 million, 200 billion.
Regardless of the number, it's much more than what they're getting now, even with
Yeah.
their own TV deal, even with some of the money they're getting from the ACC.
Yeah, but that deal was already set though.
I know that was way back when.
Right.
Obviously, it's the different now.
Yeah.
Right, more money's involved now, but there's too much money being left out there.
I mean, the ACC and Notre Dame can rework that deal,
They still
even
can.
with all the other
They
members
still
too.
can. Even I mean, I'm sure that's what they're talking about even now with the scare that Notre Dame might leave the ACC, which
Right.
would then I think would kill the ACC. I think from there, if Notre Dame leaves, the ACC starts to kind of slowly dissolve. The Big Ten will start to grab into the ACC for some teams. Maybe SEC will definitely pick some teams up.
Right.
So I think Notre Dame should join the Big Ten. It makes sense geographically, obviously, but I mean that doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I mean, it never mattered for Notre Dame. They're not a regional team.
It never mattered for Notre Dame for sure, but it makes sense. Like they can save money with travel because they're in the Midwest already. Their biggest rivals in Michigan, USC, are already in it. They have rivalries with Purdue. They have rivalry with Michigan State. They can make a rivalry with IU. Not really enticing, but they could if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Northwestern is like the little brother to Notre Dame, I guess. But
I guess academically,
right? But I don't know. I think
both of them are both great institutions, by the way.
Great institutions. And then I'm sure Notre Dame could tell the Big Ten, go get Stanford. We'll probably join. I think it's time. Notre Dame should join the Big Ten. And I think, like I said, there's too much money involved because then this would also guarantee they get into the playoff. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They don't have to wait on anybody else and how their season ends up faring out. They don't have to wait on any games. If they win the conference, they get in. If like you said, if they get runner up, they'll probably get in, especially if they're 11-1.
Yeah, but what if they're the third team in there?
If they're the third team, they might have lost to they could have lost to the champion.
Yeah, they lost to the top two teams.
I mean, depending on the expansion, how many teams they expand to,
right?
And we'll probably get involved.
Yeah, I think I would stay independent. I think they would. I think they have a lot of leverage right now. Also, why join a conference if you don't know what the full max is yet, or what they're looking to add into it, right? So I would wait and see what the SEC continues to do, because I don't think the Big Ten is gonna just if Notre Dame came out and told them no, then that stops the Big Ten from getting Oregon and Washington. I think they go after Oregon. Washington feels just because I think they would probably go after like Cal or Stanford.
I'd hope Utah.
But the only reason I say Cal and Stanford is because I think they're both AAU schools.
Right. Yes, true.
So that would make sense. Oregon would be like a draw, obviously, just the brand. Phil Knight, Nike.
Yep.
But Notre Dame has a lot of they have all the leverage right now, and people that say that they don't are they're delusional, because Notre Dame will get the best deal for Notre Dame, not the best deal for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So and even if it's not the deal with the Big Ten, it's probably a deal with either SEC or ACC.
Yeah.
So I think you could wait it out just a little bit and see what happens.
I just don't think you can wait too long, because then all that power leaves.
Well, you can wait until 2024 or 2025, because right now they can't join or they can say they join the conference, but their deal, they can't play until 2025 because of the NBC deal.
Okay.
Because that's who has their the rights to their home games.
Okay.
Now they can obviously pay and get out of that deal, but I think Notre Dame is like I think they like that they're on NBC and they have their own deal with
Yeah,
NBC.
but we talked about this before. NBC is trying to make a push to pick up all the whole Big Ten.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna be NBC. I think it'll be Fox.
I think NBC can probably pull it up. They offered him $1 billion or more.
I think that was Fox.
I can't remember now.
We'd have to do more research on that, but yeah, I don't see. I think Notre Dame has they have some cards to play. They'll play some cards and see what happens. But I think Notre Dame is in a really good spot, and I don't think they need to do anything right now too crazy. They could wait it out and see what happens, and if nothing changes, then obviously they can join. But is it Fox or is it NBC?
I'm seeing NBC. I gotta take my time to read it. I'm a slow reader, man.
But yeah, so Notre Dame, man, this has been one crazy saga of like conference realignment.
I think
what is it?
They're both talking about Fox and NBC, but I think that $1 billion number was more of like an evaluation of what the conferences were. So that's how much you would have to pay them to be the broadcasting company.
I can see that.
Or whatever. So either way, they're gonna make, regardless if it's Fox or NBC, it's worth $1 billion, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is just a money grab for all teams, or for USC and UCLA, it's just a money grab. But for the bigger, like for Fox and ESPN, these teams, like they just care about the money, and that's all that they've been looking for. The money. Like none of this realignment stuff happens without Fox and ESPN telling, or basically insinuating that to get more money, we need more teams here. And I think that's what's happening. Is that people in ESPN and Fox are essentially, I'm not going to be hyperbolic, but in a way,
puppeteering.
That, or like, I don't want to say ruining the game, because obviously the game is still the game, but they're ruining like aspects of the game.
Yeah.
That I just,
mainly to me, it's tradition. I mean, I guess money talks, because a lot of tradition has been thrown, like I said, already thrown away by USC. Being a blue blood program, being who they are, they kind of said, forget
like
about
all the tradition of playing Washington, Stanford, and Cal. Like those are rivals.
And all the glory days in the Pac-10 back then. I mean, being who you were back then, it's all for naught.
Right, but. That's enough for that. One of the other things that we kind of want to talk about is, I guess, recruiting right now. Recruiting has been going crazy for, I think, these 4 teams is just Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, and Miami. What say you?
Going back to what you said about USC's recruiting class, they do have 2 D lineman recruits currently committed to the program, but they're both 3 stars. Not saying they're bad.
No.
Just saying they're not as highly ranked as other programs have their D linemen to be, but they're both they're 522 and 530 nationally, respectively.
I think one of them is like I think it's this dude, the Amos Talalele.
Yeah.
I think he's being converted to an offensive lineman. I'm pretty sure.
He's a big boy. Yeah, 6'5", 330. He's a big guy.
Yeah, so I think he's being converted to a offensive lineman.
So they also have Tobias Raymond, who is 774th nationally, but he is 6'7", 250. He's actually kind of, I would say, he needs to put some weight on it. At being 6'7" and only 250.
Yeah, he's very slim.
A little slimmer.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean USC has the number 12 recruiting class right now. It's
being carried because of their 2 5-stars.
It's mainly because of the 5 stars. It's also mainly because of the higher ranking, just offensive recruits.
I mean, they have 3 players in the top 50.
Yeah, they have some good.
They have Mekhi Lemon, Zachariah Branch, and Malachi Nelson.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. USC needs better defensive players, in my opinion. They can keep poaching other players for the transfer portal for now, but again, I think it comes down to also defensive scheme. So Alex Grinch needs to really figure that out.
Right, and then the biggest news, I think, some of the biggest news of just this weekend is Notre Dame recruiting has gone crazy, and especially
it's elevated to levels that we have never seen,
Yeah.
or we haven't
Like
seen in a long time.
when people like, if you think Notre Dame was good with Brian Kelly, like they're gonna be like
They're
elite
gonna
with
be
with Marcus Freeman.
pretty elite. Yeah, I think there's a mentality that has full on players and even staff around Marcus Freeman are full on board. They are bought
Yeah.
in. They're all chips on all chips. What is it? Was it? Oh, they're all in on the chips. And I mean, you see it now. I mean, we've also talked about this. I think previously that Notre Dame at a moment or for extended periods of time they had the number one recruiting class.
Right.
Eventually getting pushed down to below 10 or just right outside the top 10. So I don't know. We'll see how long this lasts. I do think the way they're recruiting right now, they will end with a top 5 recruiting class.
Yeah, I think we already kind of looked at the numbers. If they land within the like over 290s,
Yes,
they're obviously a top 5.
top 5 class. That's how it's been for the past couple of years. If you get a score of 290 on 24/7 Sports, you're most likely ending with a top 5 class.
Right. I mean, their class is nice. I like their offensive lineman Hall.
Yep.
They have obviously Charles Jagusa, who's very nice, 6'6", 300.
Arguably, probably one of the better offensive line hauls in all the recruiting team rankings.
I mean, their best recruit is Keon Keeley. That dude's 6'6",
If they get
242.
if they're able to draw in Jason Moore into this fold,
Yeah.
they will be. I think Notre Dame will have the best defensive line recruiting class this cycle, and they arguably already now have the best offensive line recruiting class currently.
Right. So basically, winning the trenches is
It's
what.
winning the trenches, and that's
Yeah.
how you win games.
Right. So, and then not only on top of that, they have really nice pieces like a safety, Peyton Bowen, who's out of Geyer, Denton, Texas. Huge safety. Obviously, he's listed as number 4 in his position, but that dude is like the top 4 at safety are so good. Like they're all very close.
Yeah.
Like they all feel like they could either all be number 1 in a different class, right? And another guy that they're still going after in the safety class is Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs, the number 1 ranked safety, which it's a long shot, but
Yeah.
at least they've made it this far into his recruiting. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, he's taken visits to them already, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, a good amount of visits. He has a tie to Kyle Hamilton, who, as we know, played at Notre Dame. So he's close to that family. So I mean, there's a little allure there, there's a little draw, but like,
Right.
I mean, he's also from Georgia, so
I think he lands at Georgia.
I think he
and
probably
he
does
ends up
land at
staying at Georgia. I like the pickup today from Christian Gray.
Christian
That's
Gray.
it. That was a huge need.
right before,
At least at DB.
right before we started recording, we saw
Right.
that.
Obviously, they have really nice defensive linemen, good linebackers coming in.
They're-
Obviously, Jaden Osbury is another linebacker that they're looking
They're
at.
starting to really pick it up on receivers. We saw Braylon James already committed early, Rico
Yeah.
Flores yesterday.
Yeah, both are nice. Micah Bell committed a couple days ago as well. Bobacor Traore, who decommitted from Boston College and then flipped to Notre Dame, which is a nice grab there. Sullivan Absher, good offensive tackle. I mean, dude, 6'7". Devin Houston, another interior D lineman, very good. Their class is just nice. It's very.
Ohio State. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, they went after really nice guys. I mean, they're going after like depth more than anything at key spots.
Yep.
Like obviously O-line, D-line, linebackers, safeties, DBs. I like the Notre Dame class. It's very diverse. Obviously, what I like is the defensive pieces. You can't just play offense. It's not 7-on-7.
That's true. I do. My draw more to Notre Dame's classes is the offensive pieces they have, because we all have seen the articles. They don't have a lot of depth in the receiver position. So I've been paying attention of who they're going after and if they're really winning those recruiting battles for offensive pieces.
I do like their running back commit, Jaden Lamar. Is it Lamar?
Jaden Lamar, yeah.
I like him. He's the best running back out of the West.
Very good.
Nice grab.
Very
I like
good.
him.
Yep.
I'm still going after Richard Young. Very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
I think he lands at Alabama.
I think for the most part, I think Notre Dame's class is coming to an end. Like they're finalizing the class, but they're also still in the running for other very high 5 stars, which is nice. Which is obviously a nice area you want to be in as a program. You get the high majority of all the key pieces and kids that you want, and you're still in the running for very highly touted recruits that are mostly in the South that are probably going to go to the Alabamas, the Clemsons.
I think this is huge for Notre Dame because if you think about it, the more that they have, the more that they try with 5 stars,
Yes.
eventually they'll land 1 or 2 here and there.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's great for them, not just now, but for the future. Because if you look at the 2024 class, they're off to a nice start
Already.
too.
Yep.
So they're only going to get better,
Yes.
at least with time, right? And then coming in number 2 is Ohio State's class. I like their class. I like Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes.
Super exciting.
I think they have 2 of the best receivers in the class. I think Carnell Tate, I think he's the best one.
Probably 3 of the best receivers. Are they 3 or do they have 4 receivers in the class?
They have 4 receivers, but Noah Rogers is easily like he's a top 10 player, bro.
50th nationally.
He's a top 10 receiver, my bad. Top 10 receiver.
Yeah, Ohio State receivers are always going to be. They're always going to be in the top top 50. So
right.
The Ohio State's always going to recruit well, as we know, and I love seeing them pick up these offensive pieces. And you already know that the offense fireworks every time they're on the field.
I think this is a great receiving
core.
Hall, primarily because 2024 they have the number 1 quarterback already signed, Dylan Raiola. So for him to look at this, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna have some nice pieces.
Easily.
So I like Carnell Tate. I like Brandon Innes. Luke Montgomery, I don't know much about him, but obviously he's very highly touted.
Also, Notre Dame was going after him for a long time too. And
really nice.
And same thing with one of the offensive line.
Yeah, it was Austin Severland, right?
Yes.
Severveld or
Severveld.
Yeah.
Yes, Notre Dame was also going after them. I mean, Notre Dame was also early on in the running for Carnell Tate. There was a lot of talk about Carnell Tate and Notre Dame. That obviously didn't come.
Yeah. What about the news or the noise with Tennessee? There was like some rumors there that he was going to pick
I'm
Tennessee.
Sure a lot of money is being thrown around. A lot of money was being whispered into his ear.
But I think the biggest news is obviously Texas. I think Texas is just.
They're lighting up the recruiting show. I also like seeing this. I'm not going to say Texas is back. They haven't produced anything.
No. Texas is not back by any means, but they have nice pieces.
Yet.
Yeah, they have nice pieces coming. Obviously, Arch Manning. I don't care how you feel about him. The dude had offers from Georgia and Alabama.
Everywhere.
I mean, the dude had offers from some of the biggest big-time colleges. Like Nick Saban can't be wrong.
Yeah.
Offering this guy, right? So getting him, and I spoke to you about this, but landing Arch Manning, essentially, you can parlay that with other picks as
easily.
Well.
Yeah.
Like Jonte Cook. I remember he had an interview earlier this year, and
it was a visit.
And then he said he's looking, or he's also he would love to go play with Arch Manning.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing.
Yes.
He's gonna go play with Arch Manning.
And then you got Ryan Niblett, also a top 100 prospect, another receiver.
But if you look here, they also were able to land Derek Williams, the number 3 safety, 627, because they were also able to tell him, hey, you're gonna have a great offense on the other side.
Yes.
So it's not like you're just gonna be defensively, you know.
I think it's easy. It's very easy to tell any receiver they're going to be playing with a Manning.
Yeah.
They're going to come and play with. You ever heard of Peyton Manning? Ever heard of Eli Manning? Come on now, come over and play with Arch, and it's easy championships, easy wins, or whatever you want to say. Are they back? No. Can they be back? They definitely could if they play it right.
Right. I like their offensive pieces. I like their offensive pieces. They're nice.
Yes.
Clemson up here too at number 4. They were I think outside of the top 15 for a little bit.
For a while, yep.
Making the rise now. Obviously, their highest recruit is Christopher Vizina, who was a Notre Dame prospect that they were looking at
for
him.
Sure.
So we'll see how that is. Obviously, they have Vic Burley, who's a nice defensive lineman. I like his game. He's long. But he's thicker. Harris Sewell, who's an interior offensive lineman. I don't know much about him. Their class is nice. It feels like a Notre Dame class. Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and linebackers.
Yeah.
It feels like a Notre Dame, you know what I mean? It feels like Southern.
Yeah. Outside of the very high recruited quarterback.
Yeah.
that
outside of
Notre
that,
Dame normally does not get, but yeah, it does. It's a good recruiting class. Obviously, in the top 4, it looks good. I think Clemson ain't going nowhere. Clemson may have had a down year last year.
Yeah.
And Clemson's not going anywhere. They're still recruiting very highly. They're going to keep winning games. So it's exciting to see them also pick up the pieces.
Right. Even if DJU doesn't get it going, they have the number 1 quarterback from last year's class, Kate Klubnik.
Yep.
They're going to be fine.
They'll be
fine.
fine.
People, they're going to be fine.
Chris Vicina coming in.
Right.
Fine. They'll be okay.
They're going to be pretty good. I also like Miami's class. I think those, when I said the list, obviously Notre Dame, Ohio State, Miami, and what was it? Who did I say the other one was? Texas.
Already hit him.
Miami, I like Miami's class because today they got the offensive lineman commit from Francis Magua or Mago. I don't even know how to say his last name. But anyways, he is the #1 tackle in this class. The dude's #9 player in the entire country. The dude is the dude.
He's the guy.
He is a guy, and a lot of people thought that he had a crystal ball, or I guess a projection from I think it's some USC On3 insider to land at USC. Obviously,
I saw more crystal balls to Tennessee.
I did see that too, but but I think it's like USC needed this guy.
Needed him for sure.
Miami was able to keep him inside the state of Florida. I think, and we spoke before we started this, but Francis staying in Florida at Miami is huge for Miami because they are doing something that Lincoln Riley and USC aren't doing.
Yep.
They're keeping top talent in the state of Florida. And yeah, it might go to either like Florida, like the Gators, or it could go to Florida State. But at least they're competing with some of those teams, and they're telling them, why leave? Stay here.
Right.
And I think that's huge, and it plays dividends. Pays dividends. And also Jaden Rashada, who was a nice commit. Obviously, I don't know how good he'll be out of the quarterbacks. Obviously, in the position, he's #7.
Yeah.
I think there's some guys that are a little bit better than him.
Yeah.
I understand, but he's a high 4-star.
I mean, it kind of gives me a little bit of like you remember Fleet Franks?
Yeah.
He kind of gives me that vibe.
A little.
I mean, I've seen like he did well in his camps. He does well in the Elite 11. Fleet Franks did well in the Elite 11, but I mean, that didn't pan out well for him.
Right. I like the Riley Williams commit just a couple days ago. Obviously, the #2 tight end. Obviously, they're doing good things by adding weapons and protection for Jaden Rashada, for their future quarterback. And also, Tyler Van Dyke still has I think 2 more years left?
Something like that.
So they're building something really nice. Obviously, getting Nathaniel Joseph to decommit from Clemson and land, and obviously to flip to him.
Or stay home. It's just like you said, he's from Miami, Florida. So why, just like you said, why go? Why leave? Why go anywhere else?
I mean, just look at their top recruits. They're literally all except for
Jaden Rashada.
All from Florida. He's doing what he needs to do.
Yep.
He's winning the battles in Florida.
Well, and what better place to do it when it's a hotbed of talent. There's
right.
nothing but talent there.
I think this is huge because one, it affects Alabama because Alabama and Nick Saban have been doing this for a while.
Yep.
They were able to go into Miami and Florida, the southern region of Florida, and take a lot of those recruits out of there.
True.
But now with Miami and the momentum that they got going, obviously Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter.
Yep.
They're gonna keep a lot of talent in state.
Well, how do you feel about these players pretty much being on payroll? Like,
Well,
do you think how big of a draw does that have for recruits to be like, oh, I can just stay home, pretty much be paid to go play at?
I think it's so what Miami is doing with their NIL stuff, it feels not as pay for play. Like I understand that they're getting paid, like obviously they're gonna get they're on some like attorney's payroll or whatever.
Yeah.
And I get that, but they're not getting paid like a whole lump sum of like $3 million. Right. And I guess I don't know how it works or how like the how it's getting
payouts will be. Yeah.
How it gets paid out, but like if it feels like if you're already on payroll, you're an employee, you're getting paid, and I understand it's pay for play, but you're not getting the lump sum. So basically, if they don't perform or something happens, my guess is they get off of that payroll.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So unless now it's different, obviously, if you're like Jordan Addison, who got the reported or I guess the rumored $3.5 million or whatever, my guess is he got all of that.
I don't know how you would do that.
Also, Texas A&M. See how does all of that work?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, we're still very new, very fresh in state.
All of it is so new. So, but I think Miami has something very like it feels legitimate.
It feels like legitimate because they're on payroll, because they're being treated as employees more.
Right. It feels like an actual like stable, like it feels stabilized, like stable. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it doesn't feel like if because eventually there will be regulations and guidelines on this stuff.
Yep.
And I think what Miami's doing, I don't think it'll affect Miami at all because it's very clean and cut. Like they're getting paid, but they're on payroll.
Yep.
So it's not like they're just getting paid.
Could be and could be performance based. It could be like, oh, you like a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get it, I understand it, and what I don't like about it is obviously when it came out, Jaden Rashada's like NIL, like a lawyer, attorney, or whatever, agent.
Yeah.
When he came out and badmouthed
Florida.
Florida and their collective or whatever NIL stuff is doing, and then obviously Florida came out and said that we never even spoke to you about anything.
Yeah.
I think one, it affects not only these like some of these prospects, but like if like that agent, if he has other players, Florida's not gonna look into him.
No.
Because one, why would they want to deal with that agent?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to.
That's true.
So I think that dude's gonna. I guess he's just screwing himself.
But I also think he's also screwing other players who also have agents that kind of, or I don't know if it's really an agent. I think it was like his attorney, like,
something like that.
It was his lawyer or whatever. So whatever it is,
yeah,
you're screwing other recruits if they have the same attorney or whatever lawyer or agent,
right?
But you're also screwing other agents or attorneys and lawyers of having a negotiation kind of transpire. Because maybe there's an off chance that this guy could be the same attitude or same dickheadness as the same guy that Jaden Rashada had. So
yeah. I don't like that element of like what it's turning into.
I do not like that.
That just feels like agents need to stay out of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because one, these are schools. These aren't franchises.
Yeah.
These aren't NFL teams.
Right. These are public universities.
Yeah. Dudes need to chill out.
Some private universities, mostly public universities, and they're run by the state. They're not run by private entities. So it does bother me that they're allowing. I guess there's no regulations, but like I wouldn't like if I was like an AD would not like to be interacting with a student's agent or lawyer.
Yeah.
Like I would rather interact with the student's parents, the student himself.
Yeah.
His extended family.
Right.
It seems.
Yeah. I also think that what happened with Jaden Rashada is he was projected to go to Florida because of the deal that was I guess there.
Yeah.
And then
$11 million.
Like 10 million. Yeah, 11 million, whatever. And then when he went to Florida, to Miami, and then he flipped. Like basically, he went for money.
Yeah.
Same with Nico. Like I understand. Hey, I have no issue with them going for money.
Especially if it's the upbringing. You didn't have a lot of money growing up. Stuff like
hey,
that.
I would do the same.
I would too.
Like it's like I understand. Like if I had 8 million thrown in my face or just like kind of dangled in my face, I'd be like, yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
Right. So I would give up. Like same thing with like happened with Quinn Ewers or whatever.
Yeah.
The 1 million deal, and then
then he was there.
You know what? His 1 million deal is like, dang, I could have gotten more. That's crazy, right? But like the fact that now like teams are like obviously Tennessee is not afraid to say like, yeah, we're paying players.
Yeah.
Because they are.
Well, now no one's afraid. It's NIL.
And then the whole thing with like Texas A&M saying like, oh, we don't play players or anything like that. Like they got defensive over it, or Jimbo did. Like, dude, you had a video just recently came out with like a coach saying, you see a lot of these suites. A lot of people in these suites are paying you a lot of money or something, right?
To come over here or whatever. That's a bad look.
I understand that recruiting is obviously like they're gonna make some deals here and there.
They're making deals.
But I also think that students or like these recruits should also consider going to the right place for them, not just the place with the most money.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's what's gonna affect a lot of these like quarterbacks that are going to places for money and not being developed into great quarterbacks.
But at the same time, when you're a quarterback, and a lot of programs need you specifically. You're obviously gonna look at the depth. Like, hey, can I play right away? Because I also love playing football, right? So I don't want to go to LSU where they're loaded with quarterbacks, or I don't want to go to Alabama where they're also loaded with quarterbacks. Let me go somewhere else.
Right. And go ahead.
No,
I did want to talk a little bit about the so just about every quarterback is has a home except for Dante Moore. Where do you think he ends up?
I mean, I saw his recent article. He said, "Don't assume anything. Don't listen to the media." Type. So he keeps a lot of his internal, like obviously is whatever he's mulling over. He keeps it to himself or to his immediate family.
Right.
I do think he does probably end up at Oregon, although he might be he might be pushed away from it because the Pac-12 is dissolving as we speak. So maybe he doesn't want to go to Oregon anymore. But at the same time, the next school after Oregon, and he can't go to Miami anymore. Jaden Rashada is gone.
Yeah.
He can't go to LSU because they're loaded with talent as well.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't think LSU has a committed quarterback this class so far,
No.
but they had Howard last year. They have Jaden Daniels this year,
Yeah.
the transfer. They have
Miles, is it Brennan?
Miles Brennan, who started last year.
Right.
So they're, I mean, LSU's loaded with talent. So he's going to be buried in the depth chart as well. So his best bet is to go back to Michigan to play
Either
at
that or
Michigan.
Notre Dame.
Or Notre Dame. That was rumored way back when.
I think the Notre Dame feels more plausible just because obviously he's not blind. He has to be seeing that class that
Yes,
Marcus Freeman
he
building.
needs to be seeing the class. I think right now I would say Oregon, but
Right.
As of right now, but as all the rest of the news transpires about the realignments and where's Oregon going,
Right.
then I can see him.
I
jumping
think
ship from there.
I honestly think that Dante Moore takes all the way until either the early signing date or the national signing date in February.
I can see him doing. I can see him. He's like you said. He's not gonna drop his top 3 or his top 5. But
he's not.
I do think he makes a decision before the early signing period. But like right before. I would say maybe after the full season, maybe November, or maybe late or early December. So
yeah, it'll be interesting where he goes because now, like, obviously, one of the choices that was Miami for a little bit because the Josh Gaddis connection from Michigan. That makes sense. But now
LSU, he had a phenomenal visit. He went to Texas A&M. He said he loved it.
Yeah,
Texas A&M also has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about their quarterback recruiting though.
Calzada, I think he transferred out. I may be wrong
so
though.
Texas A&M might be an actual real contender for Dante Moore as well. I mean, outside of the money, I don't think Dante Moore is motivated by money though.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think he's motivated by money. But I think what he's motivated, what his biggest motivation is immediate success.
Yeah.
So he wants to see the field immediately. He can probably do that best, maybe, because I'm having memory loss right now just for Texas A&M's quarterback class. So I'm not sure who they have in terms of quarterbacks, but he could have best immediate success at Texas A&M. Now as I think about it.
Well, I mean, in the SEC, I mean, it'll be interesting, but I'm not. I think he probably stays, or he probably ends up going to Notre Dame. I think that seems likelier, just because, because Notre Dame has no issue with conference. Like, they don't play a conference schedule. Oregon does, and in 2 years they won't even be in the Pac-12, or there might not be a Pac-12.
Right.
So for Notre Dame, it's very appealing. Obviously, just look at the offensive line haul.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, if you're a quarterback, you're looking at that and you're like I'm gonna have time to throw the ball.
A great offensive line.
The defense too.
Starting to get a lot of key pieces on the receivers. Obviously, Chancey Stuckey's doing a really good job recruiting, as well as CJ Carr. I know the addition of CJ Carr in the 2024 class may have scared him, not scared him, I guess. May have worried him, will I actually have the reins of the job? Like, do I have to compete with this man all the time? Yes, you're gonna compete anywhere you go. But like I said, I think his biggest motivation is immediate success, and him wanting to start right away. I think Oregon would be the best landing spot if he wants to immediate success. But like I said, maybe the realignment is pushing him away. Texas A&M is next. I guess I'm lying. The best place he'd have immediate success, I think, would be Michigan back home. I think he would start right away. I think not right away, but he would get thrown in very soon in his.
Well, there's nobody there. I mean, obviously they have McCarthy still there, and they also have
last class 2022. Texas A&M ended up picking up the 22 in the nation. Connor Weigman. He was number 2 in his position for quarterback. So
they're looking for a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah. And
so they might actually.
Well, they have it with him. They have it with Connor, who was also from Texas. They had the 2022 class. He's already signed, already enrolled.
You said what ranking was he as a quarterback?
Number 2 in the nation.
Number 2.
But he's number 22
as a prospect.
Yeah, as a
total.
Overall.
Yeah, nationally. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Dang. And he's also from Texas. That kid is also from Texas. So maybe so if he wants immediate success, he does not want to be. That means to me he does not want to be buried in the depth chart.
Okay.
So he can go to Oregon, which I think he'll probably start right away.
Yeah, he would start.
I think he'd win the spot in the offseason. Yeah. Or he can go to Michigan. I think he can win the spot in the offseason.
Or he can go to Notre Dame.
Go to Notre Dame, and he can
he won't. I mean, depending on Tyler Buckner.
It all rides on Tyler Buckner and how good he is. There is Drew Pine, but I do think Drew Pine ends up transferring out
Yeah.
After a while, I think he's been buried long enough. I think to him, he wants to play ball, so he probably transfer out, probably go back home in the Northeast. Um, so I do think he can have success at Notre Dame, especially with the pieces they're gaining. He can probably have success at Michigan if he wants to play right away. But will they be successful in terms of like winning championships, winning the conferences, beating Ohio State? I'm not sure. I don't think you just pulled it up. I don't think Penn State's a real contender for Dante Moore.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I haven't heard much about Penn State and Dante Moore though, so I know I might be oblivious to it. But
if I had to rank the teams, it'd probably be Oregon,
Yep.
Michigan, Notre Dame, LSU.
Yeah, I think he's buried. He's going to be buried in the depth chart for LSU because there's another. They are like I mentioned. They have another top 5, quarterback from last year.
Walker Howard.
Walker
right?
Howard.
Yeah, so he's also ready to go, and I mean Oregon. I don't know the quarterback that they have, but I think he might be a junior.
And Walker Howard was number 5 in his position, 40th nationally.
Yeah, so he was highly touted too. So I think either it makes sense to go to Notre Dame just because look at that class that's coming, and also just like the momentum that Notre Dame has with Marcus Freeman right now.
Yes.
They're doing something really. They're building something.
Yeah.
And I like that for them. So we'll see how that goes, but it makes sense to go to Notre Dame. It would make sense to go to Oregon.
It would make sense to go to Michigan.
It makes sense to those 3. LSU, Penn State feel like very.
Penn State seemed like a long shot as I'm seeing it. I didn't even know he was warm to Penn State.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
But that might seem like a long shot. LSU is closer to me than Penn State is, but like we said, LSU you're buried in depth. Like it does say he's one of Texas A&M, so
yeah.
I mean, I guess it does mention how many quarterbacks they have on the roster. So Michigan has 7 quarterbacks on their roster. Texas A&M has 4. Penn State has 4. So again, it's all about depth. Notre Dame has 6, but I think it's true scholarship players is 4. They have Ron Paulus, they have Steve Angeli, Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the other one would be.
The other 2. I think there's
one of them. Yeah,
they're probably walk-on or.
Oh yeah, probably walk-ons. Yeah, that seems right. But I mean, can I click on this here? Yes, I can. So right now they have Miles Brennan as a senior, and then Neusmeyer, and then
Dowd has to be a walk-on.
Yeah, and then I guess I didn't know. But for Oregon, they have
Anthony Brown,
Bo Nix, obviously. This seems plausible. Oregon still seems like a good pickup. Obviously, both of these guys are seniors.
They'll be losing.
And then,
Yep.
This is what is it? Ty Thompson.
Yes.
He was a 4-star. What was he last year? He was a number 7 quarterback in the class. Yeah.
40th nationally.
That'd be nice too.
Dante Moore being number 5 in the nation.
Yeah.
Or not nation. Number 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I think everybody's still available. I don't think there's like one team that separated itself from the pack.
Right now, I think Oregon leads.
Oregon does lead, I would say.
I think Oregon leads. After that, I think everybody's kind of neck and neckish. Yeah. I do think Notre Dame has fallen a little bit behind.
Yeah, they have. Because if they hadn't, he would have committed by now. At least that's what the theory thought is, right? Yeah. That he would have committed by now.
But I do think he likes this attention right now because he's the last
quarterback
that hasn't been committed. The biggest quarterback that has not committed yet.
Right.
So I do think he likes his attention. Which who wouldn't?
Right.
Who wouldn't? You work so hard to get to this point in your career. So I think to me personally, I don't think he lands at Notre Dame. I think he lands at Oregon or Michigan or back home in Michigan.
It'll be interesting to see because all the top 5 quarterbacks have a home essentially, and also the League of 11 just ended yesterday or a couple days this past week, and
he ended like 3rd or 4th, something like that.
Yeah, well, who got the number 1 spot or the MVP? It was Arnold, right?
I think so.
I think it was. It was Jackson Arnold, yeah, the Oklahoma quarterback. Yeah, he did. Or at least I'm pretty sure it was him. Is that what you're looking at right now?
I'm looking at him.
I also am interested to see how Nico does at Tennessee. That'll be fun to see. Malachi will do fine. Obviously, SC, Arch Manning. Malachi will be interesting because he's legit from California. So, and he would be a junior when he plays his first year in the Big Ten. Malachi Nelson.
A junior come in.
He should be, right? So he's a 2023 commit. He'll go in next year, 2024. No, he'll be a sophomore, true sophomore.
Yeah.
If he doesn't redshirt, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's Jackson Arnold. I think you had it right.
Right.
Yeah, Jackson Arnold, then Austin Novosad, Malachi Nelson, Dante Moore at 4, Avery Johnson at 5, Christopher Vicina at 6, Malachi Singleton at 7, Kenny Minchie at 8, JJ Cole at 9, and Chris Parson at 10. 11, I think it was Ricky Collins. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, 11 was Pierce Clarkson.
Yeah, it looks like the top 10 is just about done. Obviously, Dylan Lonergan. Lonergan from the number 9 quarterback in the class. He's leaning towards.
Oh no, I think
South
he
Carolina.
did commit. I think I saw his commitment video.
Oh, he already
I
committed?
think he committed to South Carolina.
Well, Ricky Collins is obviously that's a name that you just mentioned, but he's been skyrocketing on a lot of people's.
He has crazy pickup for Purdue. That's an amazing pickup.
Yeah.
I don't think he lasts very long in the class.
And on Purdue's
Purdue's class, I feel like I can feel him switching it because he's also from the South. It's kind of. I mean, I think Purdue punching high, but hey, if they can land him, they can land him.
Yeah, if they land him, hey.
Great pickup.
Great pickup there. But I think that'll wrap up today's episode. We discussed a lot, obviously, mainly just the USC UCLA stuff.
I think,
because that was a bombshell, bro. Like they got dropped and everybody was like, "What?"
I think it was more. I think it was more irritation. Like, it doesn't make sense. For these teams to come to the Big Ten.
I'm excited to see what it looks like, just because I want to see how, because you and I have talked about this off camera and obviously just in private, but USC's 2024 class or 24 season has LSU on the schedule, so that means he would be in the Big Ten, so he would get 8 conference games. LSU has a non-conference game, and obviously
and then Notre Dame
as well. So at least right now, Notre Dame's outside of the conference.
Yeah, but they already said they're going to play him.
Right. So that schedule is going to be tough. And so that means these next 2 classes for USC recruiting need to be sensational.
Yep.
And right now, it just doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
So sadly. But we'll see what happens, and I'm interested on that. Also, Notre Dame, could they join? We'll have to wait and see, because that'll be news breaking too, because they would have ended their independence
over a century old, I think,
something like that. And obviously they had to in 2020, but man, that would be crazy. But I think that'll wrap us up for today. I don't know when we'll be back, but hopefully
soon,
within a couple of weeks or so, depending on how busy the news is. But as we're getting closer to the college football season, it's gonna get busier with recruiting news, football news, injuries possibly affecting season this coming fall. But man,
it's exciting.
We're getting close to football season. So, but thanks guys for watching. Like, subscribe, check us out on TikTok and all that stuff. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.